but the best way I can describe it, you remember back in the day, I guess they still make it, been a while since I had any. You ever had any juicy fruit gum? What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having an awesome day. It is Friday, June 21st here in South Georgia, and we've got quite a few fig varieties starting to give us some delicious ripe figs. So I want to walk you around, show you some of those, tell you how we know when they're ripe or ready to pick, kind of compare and contrast all the colors and flavor profiles as well. But first, a little quick update on our trees in general and some maintenance things I've been doing here in the fig orchard lately. So some of our fig trees are still just as green as they could be. Some of them have lost almost all the first round of leaves due to rust. As I've told you before, don't worry about that. And then some of them are kind of somewhere in between there. Still some green, but also starting to lose a decent amount of leaves. So some varieties may be a little more prone to rust than others. Some varieties may get rusty leaves before other varieties do. Also, my older, more established trees tend to get rust faster. Probably has a lot to do with the fact that those rusty leaves fall on the ground year after year around the base of the plant. Yes, it does help if you clean up those leaves and keep it tidied up, but I don't have time to do that on this many trees. And as we walk through the orchard today, you may notice some fig leaves or short fig limbs on the ground like this right here. This is not due to rust. This is due to me and the pruners and some maintenance I've been doing. So one thing I've been doing over the last couple weeks is a little bit of pruning at the base of these trees, getting rid of some of those suckers and some of those low-hanging limbs. Just makes it easier to weed or pull weeds around the base of these trees. Also going to make it easier to fertilize these trees, which I'll probably do again in the next week or so. So not cutting a whole lot off of these, just some stuff at the bottom. So if we compare that LSU white honey tree that I just showed you to this Italian everbearing tree here, this is one I haven't pruned at the bottom yet. You can see it's just kind of a bushy mess. Hard to get in there and pull weeds, also hard to fertilize around the base of that tree. So this one here will get a little bit of a haircut at the bottom pretty soon. Now, as I've told you before, it's usually best to wait until late fall, early winter to do your pruning. You usually don't want to be pruning while the trees are still putting on a ton of new growth. But for me in this case, just makes my orchard maintenance a little easier to have the base of those trees kind of neat and tidy. Now that new growth or those suckers that form at the base of those trees, I could just cut them off as soon as they bud out and develop. But I like to let them grow out a little bit, because if I'm going to be cutting them off anyways, I might as well wait until they harden off a little bit so we can use them for propagation. And so as I cut those bottom limbs off my fig trees, I've been chopping those up and getting them in some soil here, doing a little mid-season propagation. And these green cuttings here, man, they take off fast. These G. cuttings have only been in this soil probably a week and a half or so. You can see we've already got some growth there. I pulled one up earlier just to check it. Already got some roots on those as well. So these should grow out pretty dang fast. Don't have a ton of these in here, only about 450 or so. At the moment, just about 30 or 60 per variety that we've been trimming up. So hopefully once fall rolls around, we'll have many of the varieties on our website restocked again for those of you who missed out on certain varieties during the spring rush. We won't have as many trees as we usually have in the spring, but we will have stuff moderately restocked, and then we'll do our big propagation again in the fall for trees that will be available in the spring. All right, so now let's walk around and eat some figs. And we'll start with this variety right here, this LSU Improved Celeste, because this was the first variety to ripen for us this year. So if we look right here, we can see several nice ones. We can also see one that something's done got into, but still plenty left for us. And so one of the questions we get all the time is, how do you keep the birds from eating your figs? And the way we do it around here is just, we're playing a volume game. We've got so many figs that the birds can't eat them all. Now the first few figs that were ripening on those LSU Improved Celeste trees, I was keeping a close eye on them, and something did get them before I was able to get them. But as we had more variety starting to ripen, as we had more figs starting to ripen, the birds can't get them all, so now I'm able to get my fair share. Now there are these little mesh bags I've seen some growers use to put around their figs while they ripen, keep the birds from getting them. That's not a bad idea if you've only got 1 or 2 trees, but we've got enough out here, plenty for the birds and us to enjoy. Now before we enjoy some of these, let's talk about how we know when they're ripe and ready to pick. Figs come in a wide range of shapes and colors, so every variety might ripen in a slightly different color. What we really want to look at is this little droop right here, this little hang. So when it starts kind of hanging like that, it's getting pretty dang close. Now I have taken a decent amount of criticism over the years about picking my figs before they are completely ripe. A lot of people will tell you, you got to wait till that skin gets really soft and squishy and you can see that nectar kind of dripping out the bottom of the fig. But personally, I don't care for those really soft, soggy figs. I like the texture of these figs before they are at what most people would call peak ripeness. So these improved Celeste figs right here, these would get a little darker, a little more ripe, but they're good enough for me right now. Delicious little sugar fig here. Yes, that will get sweeter on the inside, get a little more juicy, but nothing wrong with that right there. So I don't like to let mine get completely ripe. I like to pick them when they start to hang a little bit, and that also ensures I get them before the birds do most of the time. And then moving along from that improved Celeste, we take a look at this Kadria tree here. Yes, it has lost most of its leaves due to rust, but it is absolutely loaded down with figs. And I think I see one right there that's hanging a little bit. That one looks like it's ready to pick. Now another reason I like to pick mine before absolute peak ripeness is because they tend to store a little bit better. So I'm not able to eat all these figs that ripen as they ripen. So a lot of times we'll pick a bowl full or a gallon bag full in the afternoon and put them in the fridge and then kind of just enjoy them as we can, use them to make jellies and different stuff like that. If you pick a soggy, perfectly ripe fig, it's not going to store very well in the fridge. If you pick it a little bit before then, you can keep it in a bag and it will usually store a lot better. This Kadria tree right here actually has a pretty decent shelf life compared to most figs. Now for some reason, you go online, read a lot of the fig forums and stuff, there's a lot of people out there that will poo-poo on this Kadria variety. They'll say it's watered down, doesn't taste very good, and I strongly disagree. It's actually a pretty good fig if you ask me. Now this one here, the inside on these is usually a little pink at peak ripeness. That one right there quite hasn't turned yet. Still really good. Got some good berry flavors in these figs right here. And then right beside that tree, we've got a ton of LSU Tiger figs. These things are loaded up, and it looks like we got one right there that may be ready. I don't think I'm going to pick that one right this second. I'll come back and get that one later. It sure does look pretty though. And then the last one I wanted to show you on this side of the orchard is this variety right here called Hog Island fig. Now this variety doesn't make massive figs. This tree right here is starting to kind of come into its own production wise. It's taken it a couple years to get going, but this variety has a pretty neat story behind it. So I went ahead and grabbed this little one here. Wasn't necessarily hanging yet, but good enough to show you here. So this Hog Island fig evidently grows wild on the barrier islands of Virginia. I guess it was brought there by the British some long time ago. And as the story goes, way back in the day when Grover Cleveland was president, he went hunting over there on those barrier islands and tried some of these figs and thought the world of them, and that's how they kind of started gaining popularity a little bit. So not a huge fig, not the fastest growing fig, but a fig with a really cool story behind it. So now let's see what we can find on this side of the orchard, and keep in mind that with the exception of the 4 trees on the very end of those rows, all these trees in here are either 1 or 2 years old. So we're seeing some really good growth and some good early production out of a lot of these. Now here's one right here that I'm not going to pick today, but one I've been keeping a really close eye on, and I hope I can get it before the birds do. So this is a variety called Green Ischia. I've yet to try a fig from this variety yet, but there is a massive one right there. That thing is huge, almost as big as a tennis ball. These have a green outside, but supposedly have a strawberry inside and taste a little bit like strawberry, so I can't wait to give that one a try. And then right here we've got 2 trees of another LSU variety. This one is called LSU O'Rourke. It's not LSU Hollier. And in their second year, these trees are loading up pretty dang good for us. I did get to try one of these late last year, but I've got to try a lot more this year. We can see when they ripen, they go from green to a nice kind of bright yellow color, and we've got several there that are starting to hang. Now I do have all the LSU fig varieties planted in my orchard here. Not all of them are producing yet, so I haven't tried them all, but of the ones I have tried, I think this LSU O'Rourke may be my favorite. This one here is pretty dang soft, so I can kind of show you what it looks like on the inside. So it's got some color on it on the inside there, and this is technically considered a honeyberry fig. So it looks like a honey fig, but it's got all these berry flavors. Pretty complex flavor profile on these. It's hard to describe, but the best way I can describe it, you remember back in the day, I guess they still make it, been a while since I had any. You ever had any juicy fruit gum? Kind of tastes like juicy fruit gum to me. Just an explosion of all kind of fruity flavors when you bite into one of these. One of the best figs, in my opinion, to eat right off the tree. And then the last one I'll show you here today is another LSU variety. This one here is LSU O'Rourke. Really love these LSU varieties because they grow so fast and they start producing so fast. So just in this tree's second year, it's huge. Looks like a bird or something got into that one, but there's one right there we can get. So this LSU O'Rourke is pretty similar to LSU Improved Celeste, but there are some slight differences. A lot of people will tell you this tastes a little bit better than Improved Celeste. The shape of the fig is also a little different. This fig is a little more elongated. This one here is actually kind of hard to photograph because it won't stand upright. It wants to fall over all the time. So sometimes when I'm taking pictures of these, I have to kind of smush them down a little bit. Also a little bit darker, a little more red on it than an Improved Celeste. We open it up here, you can see the inside looks a lot like Improved Celeste on the inside to me. This one isn't perfectly ripe, but it's ripe enough for me to eat. Real good sugar fig here. Nothing wrong with that at all. Well, I told y'all that was the last one, but I told a story because I forgot about our big brown turkey tree here. If anybody's ever scared to prune a fig tree, y'all show them our video where we took a chainsaw to this tree right here. Pruning it aggressively will help it out tremendously. Look at all that green growth we've got on this thing now. Now this tree is loaded up with figs, but they're kind of hard to see because we've got so many leaves here. I think I see a few at the top there. Let me put this camera down, see if I can pull one of those limbs down and snag one. All right, so I was actually able to grab 2 there. Probably not what a lot of people would call peak ripeness. You probably can't see it on camera, but it is starting to ooze out the bottom a little bit. So these are getting pretty dang close. You can see this one has more kind of a red inside on it. And those are pretty dang good as well. So this brown turkey fig is the fig that most people recognize as the one they grew up eating. When people think of what figs taste like, they think of what these brown turkey figs here taste like. Now some people will tell me, I don't like figs, and that's because they've only ever had a brown turkey. They've never had any of these other varieties. That LSU O'Rourke fig I showed you earlier tastes completely different than this fig right here does. So don't write off figs just because you don't like a brown turkey. Lots of options out there, but a lot of people love these because they make great preserves and great jelly, and I think we still have these discounted on our website at the moment. So I hope you enjoyed walking around and trying some of those figs with me, and as we get other varieties that are ripening, we'll be sure to show you those as well, and we'll also try to keep you updated on our mid-season propagation going on in the greenhouse there. And you can find a few of the varieties I showed you today still available on our website at lazydogfarm.com. I know we still have brown turkey, some improved celeste, and maybe a couple other varieties, but like I said, we'll have more this fall. And if you missed that video when we cut down that big brown turkey tree to get it looking as great as it is now, watch that right here. We'll show you how we took the chainsaw of that tree and hacked it back completely. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.